I am Elen Stellian, the midlife empowerment coach and the founder of the Thrive membership for women 40 and over. And today I am thrilled to introduce our guest, Deborah Lukovich. Deborah is a PhD and says she is an accidentally funny, awkward nerd who overshares to prompt others to explore their lives. I have been there. An author, coach, and blogger, her entertaining but thoughtful writing is inspired by her midlife experiences. Her midlife unraveling coincided with a calling to study depth psychology, which helped her find new purpose. Her book, Your Soul is Talking, Are You Listening?, combines her Jungian-based coaching framework with stories of healing personal wounds related to sexuality and spirituality. And she is on a mission to teach others how to decode the messages sent by the soul through the unconscious, which I'm just like blown away already. I'm just so excited and fascinated by this. So Deborah, welcome. I'm just so looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you for having me. I'm pretty excited too.
Yay. All right. So I know you're going to start out by sharing some slides and giving us a little bit of some, a little education here,
Yes.
which we need because the stuff that you're talking about is really some of the stuff a lot of us may not know a lot about. So I am going to turn it over to you for this sharing.
All right. All right. Well, thank you very much. So I just want to do just a little bit of context and a little education, and then we'll get to the really fun stuff. So I think even science agrees that most of who we are, we don't really know. So we don't really know like why we do what we do, the decisions that we make, why we're attracted to certain people, why things go wrong like we think we know, but really we only know about maybe 5 to 10% of the real agenda. So much of who we are is in our unconscious. And I think one thing that people always find interesting is that the root of psychology isn't about the brain. The root of psychology is actually the study of soul and breath. And so Jungian psychology, which is the study of the unconscious, is really the study of soul. And what C.G. Jung, who is considered one of the fathers of depth psychology, and you might have heard of that word, and even if you didn't, doesn't matter, but basically he says that our unconscious is always sort of striving for a kind of balance between things that are in opposition. And you can even think about the things that are in opposition as characters in your psyche. So healing or wholeness or purpose comes from reconciling these things that are at war. So for me, in my midlife unraveling, I discovered wounds I didn't even know I had that had to do with sex and God and the relationship between my sexuality and spirituality. And when you could call it healing, or when you just come into relationship with those things that are in opposition, that's when you have growth. So growth occurs on the edges. Growth occurs, emerges. So the language of the unconscious is the image, and an image isn't only a visual image, it's like an impression. So dreams, people are often excited to talk about what are the meaning of their dreams, but also an emotional reaction is an image. It's an impression. Why did you overreact to something? An obsession with a Netflix series. I have obsessions with superhero films, and the meaning I found in my experiences with Alita Battle Angel surprised me. A spontaneous thought or a fantasy. I used to have a fantasy of driving off a bridge. It scared me. I thought, do I have a secret desire to kill myself? And I didn't. And I explored what that was. Body aches and pains, anxiety, depression. These are all ways our unconscious or our soul is trying to get our attention. Another way to look at it is sort of this masculine and feminine idea. So, which I think by now people are familiar that masculine does not mean man. It means more linear, black and white, math, 2 + 2 = 4, clarity, A to Z, achievement oriented, where the feminine is mysterious. It's full of paradox, and it's emotional, and it's relational, and it's like a spider web as opposed to an A to Z. So the unconscious and the soul is also the realm of the feminine. So in my book, I talk about the 5 steps I created to work with your unconscious. And I kind of look at it as I'm a detective. So I put my life over here because then you don't drown in what you're feeling. And I just kind of go, okay, you're over there. And the first thing I do is I gather intelligence. I just notice things. Oh, I reacted that way again. Or I'm raging in the last month. What is all that about? That's real right now for me. And then you just notice things, and I journal. And then you, over time, you find themes and patterns. Okay, I do that when, or this happens when this happens. And then you're sort of looking for the metaphor. Where is this happening in my life? So I have seen a butterfly 3 times in the last week, and butterflies to me mean rebirth or beauty or taking off or whatever. Where is that a metaphor in my life? And then finding new insights and meaning, which is kind of what I just did. Oh, yes, I'm learning how to be differently. I'm learning how to stand up for myself. I'm learning how to be financially independent. But then the key is, what is the new behavior attitude? So once I find the meaning or the purpose, what do I do about it in order to grow? So these are the steps I go into detail in my book, but you can kind of walk away with those. When we're working with images, and today I'm going to specifically talk about dreams because that's the thing that's easiest for people. There is a process that I sort of included in the 5 steps. So in addition to the 5 steps, when it comes to dreams, you want to first identify what is the image. So if you wake up from a dream and really what stays with you is a feeling, that's the image that you want to work with. Or if it's like, oh my God, my ex-husband showed up in my dream. Okay, that's the image that we're going to work with. So want to choose the most striking image for you and journal about it. And then find associations. So what associations mean is, when I think about my ex-husband, this is what it makes me think. Well, or maybe it's not that for other people. When I think about my ex-husband, it makes me think this. And so one of the myths of working with dreams is that the people who show up in your dreams are not about those people. The dream is not about those people. Your psyche is using that, calling that person and what you associate with that person as sort of, this is a part of me that I need to explore. So I have a really funny story. I was sharing a dream with a professor of depth psychology. So I was like really excited. And I started describing how my sister was in the dream and she was standing on the stove stirring a pot. And as soon as the professor said, well, tell me about your sister. And as soon as I started saying, oh my gosh, she needs so much validation, it just is exhausting, I was like, oh, I'm talking about that part of me. So the dream was not about my sister. The dream was using my sister as a way to sort of explore something about me. And then I could find the metaphor in my life. So this is one of my image drawings, actually. So that's just a little bit of quick context about sort of images, and depth psychology is really about soul psychology. And the soul speaks to us by sending messages through the unconscious. So I have found in my own experience, in my own midlife unraveling and reconstruction, that there were 3 very powerful types of dreams. And these 3 types of dreams ended up having great meaning for me and helping me eventually unfold into this, who I am today, which is I have a new purpose. And it helped me find meaning in everything that had happened to me. So so I'll use one of these, and then maybe if there's anybody in the chat who actually wants to say, oh, I've had that dream and want to chat with it, or, you can let me know. But one of the first dreams that I worked with was a recurring dream. And this might be familiar for a lot of people. It's the mercenary dream. I'm in my childhood home and armed mercenaries are chasing me with guns, with rifles. It's dark. I'm hiding in the basement. I'm up the steps. Now I'm out the front door. I'm in the back of the house. I'm across the street behind a neighbor's house. Like, I am running from mercenaries who are trying to kill me. And I had this dream, I don't know, occasionally over maybe 10 years. And I didn't know what it meant. I thought, oh, I'm sure it's something with my childhood, whatever. So I went to a dream tending conference, and that night we were told to ask our unconscious to bring us that dream. So one thing you can do when you're trying to explore a recurring dream is you can ask your unconscious to bring it to you. Now, if it doesn't work the first night, that's okay. Your unconscious might think you don't really mean it. So ask again until it comes to you again. It came to me again, and this time it was different. So this time, as I was running through my childhood home, I ran through my sister's bedroom and my son was in the bed. So now my son is in this recurring dream. And I say, William, we got to go. Come on, we got to climb out this window. And he looks at me and he says, Mom, go ahead. It'll be okay. So I climb out the screen window and then the rest of the dream goes how it usually goes. So then the next day with my dream partner, we did something called active imagination. So if you want to see, well, what happens? What does this dream mean? What does it have to do with my life? What you can do is slip back into the dream wherever you want, and you allow your imagination to take you someplace. So if you pay attention to the word imagination, it comes from image. Image is the language of soul. So your imagination is your unconscious talking with you. So this time my imagination took me around the house, through the back door in the garage, into the door, and I peeked in the living room and I saw a dark figure. And I was afraid, but I also knew I was safe because I was awake and this was my imagination. And so I decided to go towards the figure. As I walked towards the figure, it wasn't even really a real person. It was a shadow of a person wearing a top hat. That made me think of my husband at the time. And that made me think of Frank Sinatra for some reason. So I came closer and I discovered I wasn't afraid. I eventually sat in the shadow, and how I felt really was surprising to me. I felt nothing. I just felt nothing. So that was it. That was the end of the experience. And over time, I never had that dream again, by the way. Over time, that dream, I knew I had to face something that was scary, but I didn't know what it was. And what it was the beginning of the end of my marriage. And I didn't even know that yet. But my dreams are also forward looking. And what the dream was telling me initially was that I would be okay, that I could face this. And then it over time gained more meaning for me, including maybe the fact that there was nothing, even with the shadow, is that perhaps my husband, who's now my ex-husband, was feeling the same way. And maybe it was like a mutual thing that we were in denial about. So that was a really powerful experience for me. And that working with that reoccurring dream gained more meaning as time went by. So have you got any chats or questions yet, or shares?
Yeah. So I've got Martha and Sunata joining us. Thank you, ladies.
Hello.
And Martha says she has a recurring dream around an academic situation, which is actually something that's my probably number one recurring dream. Is it's like the final of a test, and I've not studied, I've not gone to class, I've not done anything. And it's the day of the final. And I'm just terrified. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm supposed to be taking the final, and I'm in college. So I don't know if Martha's are similar. She says it's also an academic situation, but I probably have this like once a month. And so it sounds like you're saying that, I need to take a look at that. Like there's an opportunity here for me to say, okay, maybe is it something I'm anxious about? Is it something that's going on in my life that I would, and Martha's saying, yeah, hers is similar also. So it's not like it's a positive, recurring dream about like, yay, I aced the test. It's an anxiety dream. I mean, I'm usually I wake up very anxious.
Yeah. So what I would say is the first thing to sort of keep in mind is that dreams are meant to be helpful. So just automatically they are there. The messages from your conscious are to be helpful. So right there, that can change the way that you feel about the dream. So so I was being chased by mercenaries. I was scared. I was terrified. Right. Yeah. But in the end, working with that dream was very helpful. It was very empowering for me. So that's the first thing to remember. The second thing is that the fact that it's coming often means that your unconscious wants you to discover something and you're not getting it yet.
Right.
So it's going to keep
like,
bringing to you.
It's
until you
hammering,
get it.
it's hammering away at me like, okay, let me
Hello.
remind you, you need to take care of something. Yeah.
Yeah. So this would be very interesting. You could do a couple of things or all of them. One would be to really journal about the dream and to pull out the images. So an image would be, what's the location? Is it the college you actually went to? So to describe like the building, the school, the class. Another one would be, another image could be the particular class. For me, it was always statistics, which was my only C in college. So this is a very common dream. I'm glad you guys brought it up. So to pull out the images, you could also just deal with the anxiety. You could deal with.
For me, it's funny. It's not visual, because I know you're talking about imagery a lot, and I'm not, it's a feeling more than a visual. And I mean, and if I tell myself, I can't imagine doing this, but let me have this dream again tonight. Like if I ask my unconscious to bring it up again, maybe with more, consciousness, whatever, with more intent, then maybe I would be able to focus on images more. I don't know if that's important.
So this is perfect. I'm glad you brought up the embodied nature of the dream. So sometimes the image you're to work is the feeling, is the emotion, is the anxiety. So now in your journaling, take anxiety and then put another word that says associations. One of the things that you can do is you can ask yourself, what is my earliest memory of feeling this way? Earliest memory of feeling the same kind of anxiety.
Yeah.
It will often take you back to, well, I was 5 and this happened to me. So what is the point of going back? Well, these things get triggered in the future because there are certain patterns of responding to life events that we've developed over time, and they're great, right? They're helpful. But then at a certain point when we're like needing to grow and get out of convention, they don't work anymore. They hold us back. So we're not going back to be like, oh, poor me, this happened, blah, blah, blah. No, it's what exactly happened? When do I first remember feeling that way? And then pulling enough forward to say, where is this happening in my life right now?
Mm-hmm.
So that is one of the images. So that has nothing to do with academia, right? But it could.
Right.
So some of us have academic complexes, not feeling smart enough or good enough. For example,
sort of imposter syndrome kind of thing.
Exactly. I know I'm very smart and I started a business before and all this stuff, but I avoided being attached to conventional ways of doing things. Yes, because I was a rebel, but also because I think the comparison was too much for me to take. So when I decided to get a master's and PhD, I got it. I did everything. But when it came to like, oh my gosh, now I'm part of this community of peers. What if I say something wrong about Carl Jung? Right. Like, so I had that. So I love that. Like, this is going perfectly because you brought up the emotion is an image to work with. Now, here's the other thing you can do, Martha, and you, is instead of asking the dream to come back to you, you can do that active imagination. So just find a comfy spot, lay down, sit, have a glass of whatever you want, but close your eyes and be someplace where you're open to your imagination. This was hard for me because I have very strong mind and ego.
Yeah.
But to be open to whatever comes up is it's directly from your unconscious. So you can say, all right, I'm really intrigued with this part of the dream. So I'm going to sort of recall, okay, here I am. I'm in that part of a dream. Okay, imagination or unconscious or whatever, take me. It requires stillness, perfect stillness, and not thinking. And then just see where it leads you. It wants to lead you someplace. And the reason your unconscious is calling on this image of this anxiety around this academic whatever is to be helpful for you to move forward. So, I mean, it's just a great example. And Martha might have a completely different sort of point or agenda to her recurring dream, even though it's the same sort of like scenario.
Right.
The meaning of it is unique to each individual.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
and then
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's interesting because Martha also asked, what does it mean to see triple digits throughout the day over several days, like 555, 333, 999, just over the past 3 days for her? Like she's seeing them. That's not really about dreams, I guess. That's just in her regular
No,
life. She's noticing a lot of triple digits.
right. So but I love it. So one of the things that my book does is cover all of the different ways your unconscious speaks to you. That is another way your unconscious speaks to you is
Ah,
synchronicity. So,
yeah.
and numerology is a specialty field all by itself, but that will happen to me. And what I'll do is I'll just Google the symbolism and see what resonates with me. In fact, sometimes when you don't know where to get started with a dream, I will use a website called Dream Moods, A to Z Dream Dictionary, something like that. And the way to look at dreams is not to interpret. It's not about interpretation. There is no right interpretation. It's about finding meaning that is useful and helpful in your life.
All right.
That's how you should look at dreams. So there is no like, oh, this dream means this, snakes always mean this. It doesn't work
Right.
that way.
Right.
It's personalized. Our psyche.
Yeah. So those little
Yeah.
books that you can buy, that'll be like, like open it up and I saw a dog in my dream. That means this or
No.
whatever. That's not
No.
that's not the way you think about dreams at all.
No, not at all. What our psyche calls on universal symbols that tend to have kind of a idea, but then it's personalized through your personal experience. So I would encourage Martha that's significant. First of all, it's significant. And the fact she feels it's significant is a synchronicity. So a synchronicity is like something in your inner world colliding with the outer world. So something in her inner world is responding to like these numbers and seeing these numbers of threes. And 3 is a really important number. 1 is an important number too, but 3 is really important. It's not my area of expertise. I just really encourage her to number 1, journal. Just as if it's a dream, like, oh, I saw 555. It was yesterday. And here's what I was doing around that time. And here's how it made me feel. And then on Tuesday, I saw 111. Here's what I was doing. Here, maybe this is what I was thinking. And then as she documents that, she may come up with further sort of associations about, oh, that's what that's about.
Gotcha.
That's about this. So that's what I mean, like being a detective and intelligence gathering without interpreting, but noticing and then finding themes, finding patterns, then finding a metaphor, and then saying, oh, here's where in my life this is happening. And then the other thing that you brought up was sort of that feeling again. So there is another kind of dream called embodied dreams, where as you're having the dream, you feel like you're there. So
I mean, it feels real yeah, it absolutely feels like I'm there when I'm,
yeah. So you're not just like having this dream, you're like, actually your body is responding to being in the dream. So my image on this slide is right after I was swept up in my first post-divorce relationship with a man 17 years younger. And I was feeling things I never felt before. I had this dream, and it was the night before we were going to go take a hike at a state park. And the dream was I was in like a state park bathroom made of steel, and it was nighttime and dark and cold. And I'd already gone to the bathroom, and all of a sudden it was pitch dark, and I didn't know how to get out. I could only I couldn't see. So I couldn't use my eyes. I couldn't use my mind. I had to feel my way out. So this was about my relationship with my feminine, feeling. Then I got to the door finally. I opened it up, and then I found myself tumbling backwards down the hill. And I could feel myself tumbling, but it was soft and it didn't hurt. And it was like not scary. And then I felt myself stop. And then I could feel a warm fall wind, and I could hear like freshly fallen leaves from the trees. And the feeling was safety, falling backwards down a hill. Wow. I felt more safe than I ever felt in my entire life. I have not felt safe in my life. And I was bullied as a child and blah, blah, blah. But I was like, what? it felt so good. I wanted to linger in it when I woke up, and I was able to re-experience the feeling for probably about 3 months. And I thought this was so powerful. I drew it. So I drew it, but you can see that those hands weren't in the dream, but that's my active imagination was like, something's got me. And at the time I thought I was reconnecting with like some ancient feminine, but over time, what this dream was telling me was that I was about to go through a tumbling experience. I didn't know it had to do with sex and God and all this stuff, but that I was safe. I was going to be okay. And so even if you don't know the full meaning of the dream, it works on your unconscious. So my unconscious was preparing me for something and saying, I didn't know at the time that this stuff that you're about to go through, it's good. It's going to be a good thing. And here, I gotcha as you go through this. So embodied dreams are really, really powerful and very interesting to work with.
Wow. And then evolving dream, is that a different?
So evolving dream. So a lot of people, even if I can get them to journal, which is really hard to do, they journal and then they never go back. So my journal now is a Word document of 1,200 pages. I started in 2013. And so from time to time, I don't know, I'll just feel like I want to go back and search for things. So I'll search for water. And water is a very powerful symbol. It's a symbol of the unconscious. So if you're in a boat and the water is rocky and it's like, it really is an anticipation that something's going to be stirred up. But usually there's something in there that's like, yeah, but I didn't tip over. There was a driver. So it's kind of telling you that something's going to get stirred up, but you're going to be okay. You're going to get there. Or maybe you do get knocked out of the boat and you're like, whoa, okay, I need to look out for like what might really take me by surprise. So one of my evolving images that was very strong as I was reconstructing, really. So I had gone through my unraveling and figuring things out, and now I'm reconstructing, was babies. So if you dream that you are pregnant, it has nothing to do with literally being pregnant. It just doesn't. Maybe like 0.5%. What you are to look at dream images as symbols and metaphors. So if you are pregnant, pregnancy is what? Creating life, is creating. It could be creating a new relationship with a different part of you that you haven't needed, that you're uncomfortable with, or that you've been shy about, or whatever. I didn't dream that I was pregnant. I already had a baby in my dream, but sometimes it was like, that's not my baby, but somebody said, oh, here, this is your baby. And it was malnourished. And they're like, you need to breastfeed this baby. And I'm like, well, but it's not my. So you could tell there was something new in me that I wasn't quite accepting or embracing. And over time, that baby changed in its appearance. In one dream, it had a smile, like, I know something. And it was only 6 weeks old. And usually by that time, maybe a baby is like, doing that. And so, and also sometimes the baby's head was too heavy and it fell off, which is very disturbing, right? But what that was telling me as I worked it was that my head is too heavy. I'm trying to stay in my head. I've got to get more in my body. My feminine has to grow to meet my masculine. And so that was the meaning for me. So babies generally are about, there's something new trying to grow in you, and you're either nourishing it, you're not nourishing it, you're like giving it away, you're not accepting it. So that might be a common image. Water is a common image. My favorite evolving image for me, but maybe people aren't ready for that, was the phallic symbol. So, and the phallic symbol for me eventually, and I think I do somewhere, somewhere in here is my womb on fire. There it is. The phallic symbol in my dream first showed up as like, ugh, yuck. And just like coming when I didn't want it to, and like belonging to somebody, like, but then over time, as I continued working with my unconscious, then it morphed to something that was more appealing, but it was attached to a man. And then eventually it morphed into something that now I had one and I loved it. So I was embracing creativity And the phallus does not necessarily have to be masculine. There is a feminine phallus, right? There masculine and feminine womb, phallus, right? All of it. And so, and then eventually, and then at another point, it was like by itself and it wanted to enter me. And I was like, oh, but I don't know if I have I don't have a condom. And I was like, what's that about? So for me, the phallic symbol is a very powerful symbol of creativity. And this image here of my womb on fire, I had just gone through a little period of lots of night sweats, menopause symptoms. I was getting ready to dump that guy after, and then all of this stuff was happening in me. And I thought, I don't even know how to articulate it. So I drew it. The day after I drew this, I wrote a proposal to do a workshop about my research at the time for Alverno University in Milwaukee, and it just came to me. So what comes out of also like reconciling all this stuff is creativity. And so my creativity now is really blossoming. And part of the reason why is because I explored all of these images.
This is fascinating. I mean, we could keep going and going. Unfortunately, we're up at time, but it's I think I'm never going to look at dreams the same way now that I've talked to you, because I feel like there's, instead of being like such a negative thing, I feel like there's an opportunity here with this, with dream exploration, to really tap into, like you say, tap into the unconscious, tap into maybe what is my unconscious trying to tell me. And I think that's so powerful. I want to make sure to, have people know a little bit more about you. So first of all, tell us a little bit more about your book.
So my book really offers a framework for people to discover the different ways the unconscious speaks to them. And I think those are messages from the soul about your purpose, your hidden purpose that maybe your ego is in the way of really discovering. And then I also have a lot of try this, a lot of reflection questions, and then I weave in my own stories. And the reason I like to do that, especially my most awkward stories, is so people feel safe, because even when they're alone, it's very awkward to think about certain things and explore certain dreams, even if nobody's around and looking at them. So I put that in my book. So it's really, it's a framework for self-reflection.
That's awesome. And I'm going to, and your book is called, I think, the same title as our talk, right? It's called, Your Soul is Talking. Are you listening?
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. I'm going to put your website in the comments. I'm going to also put your offer, a very generous offer, to have a 30-minute free consult with you. And I'll put that's available also, I guess, through your website. You can click on that option to do that. So
I love oversharing. So I have a podcast, I have a blog. I'm looking for people to subscribe so they can get all of that. Yeah. And then I'm also a coach too, if people are ready for that.
Perfect. And to subscribe, people will just go to your website, and there'll be the option there to subscribe.
Yes, there'll be a pop-up, and also on my homepage is everything. The book is there. They can click on that to go to Amazon. They can click on the podcast. They can click to schedule the free consultation. And then at the bottom, they can also, if they subscribe at the bottom, they will get a free download of my first short story called The Fantasy.
Great. Okay. Love it. Well, this has been so interesting, and I know we have just scratched the surface of everything we could.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Yay. And if you enjoy these videos, please watch for more. Until then, be well and stay safe, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.